Hey folks, Ash from being SWENGLISH, and as you probably know from the last video, I've just had my COVID-19 vaccination, which is all good. Now that does mean that very soon I might be able to travel and go on holiday, imagine that. However, a lot of countries out there are needing proof to show that you're actually vaccinated, and that's why the Swedish government today have opened a brand new service. And this is basically allowing you to get an EU COVID vaccination certificate digitally. Isn't that cool? Now, I find this rather bizarre because every country in the EU is doing this differently. They all have their own digital certificate system, which seems very disjointed to me, especially because really you want to be able to travel with this, knowing that every EU country knows what it looks like and knows how to interpret it and read it and accept it. There was some fuss kicked up recently whereby one country started refusing to accept the NHS app as evidence that Brits had been vaccinated. So that kind of inconsistency may continue, unfortunately, with every EU member state doing this differently. It's a shame the EU countries haven't come together to do this on one platform, but it is what it is. Anyway, this new system is open from today, the 1st of July. You can log in to the website, which is COVIDBevis, COVIDBEVIS.se or .se. Bevis means evidence, by the way, it's a Swedish word. And I'll put a link in the video description below so you can just click it and go straight to the website. Now, do remember, this was launched just today, and therefore you may click on the website and it will be unavailable. So perhaps give it a few days for the initial rush to calm down a little bit and for the website to actually start working properly. Now, there are a few points to make here. First of all, you must wait 7 days after you've had your first dose. It takes a while for the healthcare professionals to register you on this new service, and that's why if you try and log on there now, if you've just had your vaccination, it's highly unlikely that the service won't know that you've had the vaccination. So give it at least 7 days when you've had your vaccination before you actually try and first log into it. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting your time. The next point is you will need some sort of e-ID, and by that I mean bank ID. Everybody almost in Sweden has bank ID, and if you don't have it yet, then you're crazy. You also need a person number as well, which again, you really need for every aspect of life here in Sweden. Now, if you don't have a means of identifying yourself electronically, you can drop them an email or call them. But I wouldn't recommend that. You really, really do need to get yourself bank ID if you don't have it already, and of course, a person number. Once you then log into the service, you authenticate yourself and it will look at your history and it will generate a certificate. Now, it generates that electronically, and then it can send that certificate to services like a digital mailbox, like Kivra, and some other variants as well. It does arrive electronically as a kind of PDF, but you can print it. Now, here's my recommendation. If you are going to be traveling into Europe or elsewhere, don't just take it electronically, print it just to be safe, because you never know, you might lose access to your digital mailbox, you might even lose your phone, and then you might be in big trouble. The other thing is after you have one of your vaccinations, you'll get a little card like this that has the batch number, the date of your vaccination dose, etc. Take that with you anyway, just as a secondary precautionary measure. What you don't want to do is end up being stranded somewhere with no evidence that you've actually had the vaccination. That would not be very good. Now, there are discussions going on at the moment for people who don't have a person number, also called a samordningsnummer, which is kind of like a temporary number that you are sometimes given whilst you're waiting to get your person number. But at the moment, there's nothing decisive, so recommendation really would just be to call this agency and see what they recommend. But it is also worth noting that this is only for people who've actually been vaccinated in Sweden. So if you've been vaccinated with your first dose in another EU country, you won't be able to use this service. However, if after that first dose you've had your second dose in Sweden, or the other way around, you've had your first dose in Sweden and the second dose elsewhere, then you can use this service. But you have to have had at least one dose in Sweden. The other point is that if you have had that second or first dose elsewhere, it has to be an approved vaccine, and by that I mean approved by the Swedish government. So it's a good news service, this. It's a shame that there's this inconsistency and no alignment between all the EU member states, but it is what it is, and it's better than nothing. Let's hope that we can all start traveling and enjoying some holidays soon. Although, I don't know if you've recently looked at the holiday websites, but they are super expensive. I've just looked, and for me and my little boy to go away for a week in Spain, it's 20,000 krona. That's about £1,700 or so. That's a lot of money for just a week in Spain. I think we paid not far off that to go to Thailand for 2 weeks, long before the whole pandemic kicked off, of course. But we're all desperate for a holiday, and the holiday companies are desperate for money. I kind of don't mind in that respect because they've done really well to sustain themselves over the last year and a half, and anything we can do to help them stay afloat so we can enjoy more holidays in the future is probably worthwhile. Anyway, comment below with your thoughts on this, give the video a thumbs up, and if you want this latest kind of COVID news for Sweden and elsewhere, then hit the subscribe button below, but also click that little bell next to it and select all. And then as soon as I publish a video, you'll be the first to watch it. Thanks very much for watching, guys.